So thanks for joining the webinar today about the 2019 Social Change Fellowship. I'm Alyssa, the program lead, and we're also joined today by Karen Wellington, a wonderful 2017 fellow from Western Australia. So in this webinar, we'll cover the key selection criteria and attributes of a Social Change Fellow, and Karen will provide some insights into her experience as well. Then we'll go into a bit more detail about the selection process and have some time at the end to answer any questions that you have as well. So great, we'll head to the next slide. So as a bit of background, the Westpac Bicentennial Foundation was established to support 100 scholars a year forever. As a foundation, we believe that Westpac scholars will create a better future for all Australians. And since 2016, we've now awarded 336 scholarships to the value of over $16 million. And we've centred the scholarships around three focus areas that we believe are at the heart of Australia's future growth and prosperity. These are technology and innovation, Australia-Asia ties, and the one we'll focus on more today, positive social change. And so we are currently starting the search to discover our next 100 Westpac scholars for 2019. So we have 5 scholarship streams at the foundation. The Future Leaders Research Fellowship, Young Technologists and Asian Exchange Scholarships are run in collaboration with our university partners across Australia, but the social change is quite separate and unique. So across all of our programs, there is a focus on leadership development. But of course, the program we're focusing on today is the Social Change Fellowship, which is open for applications until the 20th of August. So a week to go. And so on to the next slide. The Social Change Fellowship is unique in that it backs individuals across Australia who have the drive and innovative ideas to improve the wellbeing of Australians. We have up to 10 fellowships valued up to $50,000, with recipients also becoming lifelong members of the Westpac 100 Scholars Network. So this fellowship is designed to give recipients the time and space to develop their skills, knowledge and networks. So a key element to remember is it's an investment in you, the social innovator, not your organisation. So we work with the fellows on a bespoke development plan that may engage with aspects like engaging with thought leaders and industry experts across Australia and the world, completing short courses or attending conferences, stakeholder engagement or mentoring. And so also all 2019 recipients will also go through a leadership development program together and another program on storytelling. This will involve a mixture of in-person workshops, group learning and one-on-one coaching. So 2019 scholars will also attend the Scholars Summit in Sydney in April 2019. This is where we bring together all the new 100 Westpac scholars from across Australia. You don't need to factor this cost into your development plan. This will be separate and we'll cover any travel and accommodation for successful scholars to attend. So what does a successful applicant look like? So we're looking for individuals who demonstrate a strong drive, commitment and leadership to create positive social change in Australia. Those who are great collaborators and engage with the community they are seeking to impact. We want to see that you've clearly identified why the fellowship would be a turning point for you and how it will help build your capacity to drive social change. We want to see that you've researched the fellowship opportunity and have a well-considered development plan, and that your development plan is focused on your personal development and learning. We do not fund projects, events, tertiary qualifications or sponsorships through the Westpac Social Change Fellowship. And if you are looking for funding directly for your initiative, then I recommend you explore the grant programs across the Westpac Group foundations to see if your organisation is eligible. So this includes the Westpac Foundation, the St George Foundation, Bank of Melbourne Neighbourhood Fund and the Bank SA Foundation as well. So overall, we're looking for individuals with a strong generosity of spirit, those with a genuine desire to give back to Australia, those who embrace diversity and collaboration, and exhibit exceptional leadership qualities. So we look for all of those qualities across all elements of the selection process. I also really encourage applicants to review more in-depth explanation of those attributes in our scholar guidelines, which are on our website. So we just have a question also that popped up is, will the slides be available after the webinar? And yes, they will, in addition to a recording also. So on to the next slide, we're looking for people like Karen Wellington. So Karen is one of the 30 Inspiring Social Change Fellows we have now supported across Australia. Karen completed her fellowship in 2017, and so it's really lucky to have Karen join us today. So she's going to give a little summary of her experience and some tips as well. So over to you, Karen.
Hello. Hi, everyone, and just apology for my voice, which isn't normally so coarse. I'm just recovering from a cold. So thanks, Alyssa, for having me, and I'll just talk a little bit about my experience and my development plan, and a few things that I wish that I knew starting out, and lastly, what the fellowship has really meant to me. So I actually applied in the first year that the scholarship was offered. So I applied back in 2015. I run a program in Western Australia called Coda Dojo WA. So this is all about helping get young kids into becoming creators rather than consumers of technology. And a lot has changed since when I applied back in 2015. So initially I was running a program which had maybe about 1,000 young people taking part. I applied because I was just really interested in expanding my thinking and finding some ways to boost my leadership capability, because I'm trying to do something a little different, which is lead a community-based approach to education. It's kind of outside of the mainstream system. So I kind of needed to forge my own path, but that really needs, to do that well, I really need to get some insight and mentorship and build those connections and collaborations so that I can, you can't innovate alone, basically. So in terms of when I initially created my development plan, actually, it took a while for me because I actually had a baby in 2016, so I didn't actually go on fellowship properly until 2017. So it's a bit of a strange case. But during that time, I was actually able to hone my fellowship development plan quite well. Initially, I started out with a bit of a superficial question, which was that I wanted to explore initiatives around the world that displayed best practice digital literacy education. But when I came to really get to grips with my development plan, it was really about how can I lead a collective approach to supporting community-based learning, and that's a bit of a different question. So I guess that leads into part of my advice, which is look at some inquiry questions. What do you want to know? What do you need to build in yourself? What are you lacking? And I found that by asking a lot of questions and writing them down, then the fellowship became the answer to those questions. But my first pass on question was too superficial. And so when it came to actually doing the fellowship, I was able to undertake a development plan that was really able to take me to the next level. So I travelled to the UK as well as to the US and to New Zealand as well. I met with some international partners and also interviewed a range of different leaders at different organisations that were basically doing out-of-the-box things that I couldn't find in Australia. And also because I was able to interview those international partners, I could develop some relationships, which have now meant that some of the work that I'm doing now, I have international collaborators, and I'm also able to collaborate on that international level. But I should also add that during the fellowship, I did do some travel within Australia. So I went to Melbourne, and coming from Western Australia, to connect with the eastern states is something that's really important. So I'm glad that I was able to do that because now some of my work is in collaboration with that national level too. Just in terms of the development plan, this is such a great opportunity for you to really think about what you need for you. And I found doing the fellowship, it was a very self-driven experience, and you got to tap into, you know, what you really need to take yourself and your initiative, but mostly, you know, look at your leadership capability and where you're headed and what you want to do. And that fellowship plan is going to be really unique to you. So it's a really fantastic opportunity. So I wouldn't actually say that the Social Change Fellowship opens the door, because it's you who has to do the research. You have to decide what doors that you want to open. But the fellowship really helps you get to those doors, and also gives you some of that backing and belief in you to take the next step. So, you know, some people said, "Oh, you're so lucky to get a fellowship," but it still was a lot of work, and to arrange the plan and to do all the meetings, and it's also about investing in my capability to do even more. So definitely, if you have initiative, you're ready to try and take it to the next level, then this will be perfect for you. So yeah, if you think really deeply about how it will benefit you, someone from Westpac early on in the process said to me, "Oh, this isn't about you in the next year. It's about what are you going to do for Australia over the next 10, 15 years." So that really got me thinking, about how can I grow myself to really make an Australia-wide impact? Because I think formerly I was a little narrow in my thinking about maybe just impacting in my area in Western Australia. So definitely a benefit of the fellowship program has been having that kind of national outlook, which I've now taken on. What else have I got here in my notes? And also when I was crafting my development plan, as well as being really strategic about what I needed to achieve in my leadership development, and also the networks that would be beneficial to create in order to grow my initiative, I also followed my heart and my gut a little bit. So, and that means because there's so many different places to go and so many people to meet, I thought, what is exciting for me to do and to go to, and what's going to give me a thrill. So as well as having those meetings and learning about scaling innovation and increasing my disciplinary knowledge, I also did some fun things as well. Like I rode a bike around the Google campus after a meeting with the education team, and I went to a conference in San Francisco and met a bunch of startups who were doing just cutting edge technology, which kind of gave me a bit of a kick as well, because that's what we're trying to do in Australia with our program. So as well as the serious stuff to develop you, think about the things that excite you as well. So, and one thing in terms of development plan activities, if I were to go back in time, because one of the things that I did in my development plan was I did a few programs where I joined some cohorts. And I know that this year for the Westpac Social Change Fellows, you'll be part of a leadership plan development program, I think, which is going to be really fantastic. But also, I think when you're traveling and if you're having a lot of one-off meetings with individuals, that's great. But also in your development plan, if you can look at some programs that you can join that are going to boost your leadership capability, but also connect you in with maybe an international community of practice in your field, or basically what I'm saying is if you can be part of a few cohorts or groups around the world, it can take a few days or maybe a week at least to develop that. And because I did that in New Zealand, I'm now kind of part of this social innovation community, which bridges the Asia Pacific. So that's, as well as the one-offs, definitely look at some kind of cohort programs internationally if international travel is what you're doing or what you're hoping to do. And also one other thing, I didn't realise until I was a fellow that the foundation, the Westpac Foundation, does have an interest in building our connection with Asia. And I had really overlooked countries in Asia for my fellowship. But if I went back in time, I'd maybe consider some of those destinations. What else? Let's see. And also, some of the interviews that I ended up doing for my fellowship, I ended up actually doing them from home via Skype later because the people weren't available when I was physically there. So one of the things that I learned from that was that for those of you who are unfortunately not successful in winning a fellowship, you can still request conversations with people all over the world who, provided if they have time, there are people who you can connect with internationally, who you can build your community of practice. So I've started doing that more after the fellowship, just connecting with people who I find are interesting all over the world. So that's a great outcome. I think, but just to summarize, I think, the impact on me that this fellowship has had, it definitely pushed me in thinking what my impact could be. So because they've made this investment in my capability, it's kind of given me this feeling of a stronger commitment to not just, the beneficiaries of the program that I'm managing now, which has grown to be about, I believe we've impacted about 15,000 young people now over the past few years. But also I feel more committed to Australia and kind of thinking long term how I can really keep developing myself to keep serving people in this country the best I can. So definitely, think big and think of it as just an opportunity to get that investment in you. And it's a great opportunity. So I think that's all I kind of wanted to convey. But just to wish my best of luck to everyone who's currently crafting their development plans and their applications. So, and also crafting their development plan is a great chance for everyone who's applying to really hone their thinking as well about who they are and how they want to develop. And whether you're successful or not with a fellowship, there are parts of your development plan that you can carry forward. So that's probably all I can add at the moment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. That was terrific. And also, to reiterate what Karen said as well, so we also give previous fellows might mentor you and provide advice on your development plan as well. And so those who particularly reach the national selection panel will provide a lot more support on crafting that. And also to note that we'll be answering some questions at the end. So just to keep in mind, on the right-hand side, if you're on a desktop, you can enter any questions that you have there. Or if you're on a mobile device, there might be a question mark there as well. So thank you, Karen. So we'll now go into a bit more detail about the selection process. So applications will close at midnight Australian Eastern Standard Time on Monday, 20th of August, but we really strongly encourage you to get your applications in earlier. So once applications close, we have at least 2 reviewers assess each application. And from here, we shortlist the top 50 applicants across Australia who progress to the regional selection panels. So all applicants will be notified by late September of the outcome of their application and if they've progressed. Please do keep an eye on your junk folder, particularly if you use Gmail, as we find some emails unfortunately end up here. So for those who do progress to the regional selection panel, they'll be invited to complete a video interview as part of this stage. So from here, the regional selection panels will meet in mid-October and we'll recommend 16 applicants to progress to the national panel. So the national panel will be held in Sydney on the 21st of November and finalists will be required for an in-person interview. And we'll arrange any travel for those applicants who are not based in Sydney and also provide a briefing session for the finalists ahead of this. And so from there, the 2019 Social Change Fellows will be notified by early December following the meeting of our board. So some tips for your application. We really encourage you to read the funding guidelines and facts that are on our website and understand the purpose of the fellowship. And we want you to consider your vision and how you will contribute to the growth and prosperity of Australia. Spend some time working on this to clearly articulate the impact of what you do and its importance to Australia. Also, pick the right people as your referees. Referees will be contacted only for those who reach the national panel, and we'll let you know prior to contacting them. Also, don't use refer to above, as some answers may be assessed in isolation, so make sure every answer is complete. Also, try to avoid using any complex language or acronyms, and save as you go as well. We also encourage you to have a look on our website at previous profiles of Social Change Fellows, and often our Social Change Fellows are more than happy to answer any questions you have, so if you feel free to connect with them on LinkedIn if you have any questions. And so also really consider why the fellowship would be a game changer in your development and why now is the right time. Because as Karen said, you need to be able to carve out the time and space to complete the fellowship. So for your development plan, start off by thinking what your personal development goals are and how does your development plan help you achieve these goals. So review the funding exclusions detailed in the funding guidelines also. And overseas travel must be conducted in one single block, but please also explore domestic activities in your plan. It doesn't need to be really international focused if that's not where you're going to get the best resources and value for yourself. Take a look if the salary allowance policy is applicable to you. We have a salary allowance policy on our website. Generally, this salary allowance is for a portion of your fellowship when you are travelling and not able to draw an income. Also, I encourage you to be realistic with what you can take on, as it is likely you'll still have many commitments with leading your initiative whilst undertaking the fellowship. We generally use travel expenses and per diems whilst travelling and estimate these from the ATO's travel allowance rates, which can be accessed on their website. Also remember that this is an investment in you, so have a think about what you need to grow your leadership as a social innovator. So as we mentioned previously, if your application is successful, we'll work with you to finalise your development plan. We'll likely involve a previous fellow in this as well, just so that they can talk you through their process and what they learned through during their fellowship experience. So this comes through to the end of the webinar, but we'll now go through the questions that are on the system. If we don't get through them all in time, we'll distribute answers after the webinar as well, or if any are very specific to you as an individual, we'll take these offline with you and answer. So thanks for your time, and just give me a moment as I review some of the questions. So we have one question, are you still accepting joint applications if initiatives are related, or should we submit applications separately? So what we encourage is that you submit applications separately and you both progress on the merits of your application, because this is an investment in the individual, so it depends on that process. In the past, we did have Jenna and Aviva from Clickability. They both progressed to the national panel based on the merits of their application, and in the end were awarded a joint fellowship. So we have a question about, are applicants allowed to reapply every year? We have a cap of 4 years applying at the moment. So generally we do also encourage if people applied last year to get in touch and get feedback on their application. And often we encourage to maybe wait a year before reapplying again, to make sure that your application has sufficiently progressed. So we have a question about references. So in the community referee is supposed to, and an expert. So we've had questions in the past, and ideally we do encourage referees to be Australia-based. For the community referee, they need to have, I guess, a strong local knowledge of your initiative, be exposed to it, or a collaborator, a very strong understanding of what you're doing. And the expert, I guess, has a strong understanding of the importance of the work from more of a leadership level and, I guess, your capacity to be a leader in this space. So can a personal development plan also include self-care rest days? Such as yoga retreats and meditation. Particularly when scholars are travelling, we do definitely encourage them to have rest days to reflect and, take on all the knowledge. If there's, a short course in particular around mindfulness, and that might relate directly to your development and your cause, then that could be considered, but not as such as part of the development plan. So we have a question about if you're in the startup scene, how far ahead should your initiative be, or is this irrelevant? So when you do the eligibility questionnaire before going on to the grant form, we do ask you that your initiative has launched and ideally been in a few years of operations. That's so that we can see that there's a proven model, that you've been able to get feedback on your program and clearly identified a need for the initiative. It can be a new concept, but generally we do really encourage that it's launched. Otherwise, wait a few years before applying for the fellowship. So if a person is running 2 projects, should we mention both or focus on one? I think in the first part of the application, we more talk about you as an individual, your leadership in the space, collaboration and experience to date. I think in this section you can focus on, the vastness of your experience and what you're working on at the moment. But in the middle section, which is about the social initiative, we encourage you to focus on one. So we have a question, is it okay the target group is not a marginalised community from the list we specified? Yes, that's completely fine. We have an other box, so just list there what target group is your focus. So a question is, lots of applicants seem to be founders and entrepreneurs. Are entrepreneurs welcome? Yes, definitely, and also people outside the social sector. You don't need to be from a not-for-profit to apply for the Social Change Fellowship. You do need to be ideally leading a program of social change and show leadership characteristics within that, but entrepreneurs are also welcome, definitely. So how exact does the budget need to be for the application? In your initial written application, we do want to see that thought has been put into the key components of your development plan. So key courses, travel, significant items of expenditure. We will work with you, particularly for those who reach the national panel level, to go through your development plan and work out costings, but please do spend the time to get it as accurate as possible as you can. So just a confirmation on the deadline. It's the end of Monday the 20th. So 11:59 p.m. on Monday the 20th of August is the deadline. So you'll have all of Monday to complete it. So how specific does the plan need to be, and name the organisations or people we intend to meet? It doesn't need to have every person or organisation you intend to meet, but if you're going to be travelling to a destination, we do want to see that you put some thought into a few people in that area and an example of why you want to meet those organisations or people. So it doesn't need to be an extensive list, but you do need to provide us with a bit of context of why you find the need to go to that area. So we have how many applications did the Social Change Fellowship receive last year? We received over 200 applications last year for the fellowship. So I think there's a question about filling in the application and seeing the scope of the whole document and questions and items. So you can save as you go and see application questions later in the form. I'll also circulate after this webinar the list of questions and word counts, just so that you have these offline as well as not in the grant portal. So I think there was a question about university course fees. So you can't contribute to, for example, an undergraduate course fee or master's or PhD program. So I would look into our other fellowship programs if you want that. We do allow short courses up to a week in length. Many fellows have completed short courses at Harvard and Stanford that go for a week. So those are allowed, but not the more typical degree courses. So there's a question, if there is a particular course that I feel covers the main development needs, is this sufficient? I'm guessing that means, is there one course that fulfills the development needs? I would look into a few options and create a well-rounded development plan, and particularly, engaging in stakeholders that are relevant to the growth of your social initiative and leadership. So have a balanced development plan, not just focused on one activity, would be my recommendation. So will it be able to be reviewed afterwards, after submitting? So your development plan will, yes, but your application, no. So those who reach the national selection panel will have time to review their development plan with our team. So what does the video interview involve? So we'll give you about a week's notice to prepare for it. It's with a platform called Sonru. We pre-populate the questions, which we'll provide to you beforehand, and you record these in your own time. Generally, we also ask to do a 3-minute pitch in part of the interview process as well, but we'll give you a full briefing pack for those who reach the regional selection panels. Can you add video links to the application? Generally, probably not in the initial application. If you do progress to the regional selection panels, there will be an opportunity you can provide more information to us then. But if there is a video that you would really like to share, I guess put it in with the question that it's most relevant to. So how do you measure the impact of an applications program against others? I guess in the initial review of all the applications, we really look around the attributes of collaboration, innovation, leadership, aspects like that, and how you've considered the development plan and opportunities. It's more in the later stages, particularly at the national selection panel where you're interviewed in person, that we more look at the impact of the program that you're leading. So is regular mentoring peer support factored into the fellowship, or would it be more on a case-by-case basis? Yes, definitely. We provide mentoring and peer support. So you'll be matched with a previous fellow to coach you through your development plan. As part of the leadership program, you'll also be matched with a leadership coach that will provide one-on-one support. And then myself and the Westpac Scholars team are on hand with any questions and support that you have throughout the process, and also ongoing as part of the Westpac 100 alumni. Is there a maximum cost for courses? Yes, there is. For a short course, there's a maximum of $20,000 for one short course, so please keep that in mind. Generally, for courses longer than a week, it should be able to fit within that budget. Are there any age limitations when applying? You just need to be over the age of 18 to apply for the fellowship. So there's a question around what is the smallest and largest you've provided. So in regards to the Social Change Fellowship, applicants are generally between $30,000 and $50,000 based on their development plan. So $50,000 is the maximum of the Social Change Fellowship. So if successful, does the foundation administer all payments for travel, meetings or courses, or does the applicant manage all financial expenses? We provide the funds to you to book travel, meetings and courses. On occasion, we can book them for you, but we do find it's easier for the individual to have autonomy to do this. We transfer payments in 2 amounts, one at the beginning of the year and one in July. And we provide support throughout that process as well. So there is a question about the initiative that this individual is leaving is a new program, but addressing the same core problem as an existing organisation. Is this suitable for the fellowship? Yes, I believe it would be. If you wanted to get in touch with us offline, I'm happy to chat through further. Generally, we want to see innovation in the idea and that there is a track record in the development. But yes, I think it would be applicable for you to continue with the application. So there's a question, if the initiative will benefit more than one demographic, which area would you suggest is identified? Generally, we suggest that the target area that most identifies with the work that you're doing, but don't get too hung up on this. There will be later stages in the application when you can clarify this if need be. So there's a question, can the initiative address a need in a government-funded sector? Yes, it can be a government-funded sector, maybe get in touch with us to discuss further if, if it's an initiative of government. But yes, that should be fine. And yes, same to the question about local government. If you're working on initiatives there, yes, that should be fine for you to apply. Yes, we'll look at providing a sample development plan. I'll provide that when some more information about this webinar is distributed with the recording. It's a top-level summary. So what will be provided will probably be a more detailed development plan rather than what's put in the initial application, but it will give you an idea of what we work towards. Can we submit different options of development plan? No, so just submit, your core development plan ideas in the initial application. We can rework that if you are a successful fellow from there. So the question, is the fellowship 12 months? You must complete the fellowship within 12 months, so within 2019 calendar year. It is often taken in whilst you are leading your social change initiative. So fellows do commence and their fellowship at different points throughout the year. So if all travel is in half of the year, does the fellow need to self-fund part of the fellowship costs? We work with you to make sure all your travel is ideally covered within your fellowship development plan. International travel must be within one block. So maybe just get in touch with us if you have any specific questions around travel and fellowship costs. So is it possible to sign up to receive notifications? Yes, there is a section on our website to receive updates on when the fellowship opens. Generally, they open early to mid-July each year. So can I explain the leadership and storytelling part of the fellowship? Because this individual wanted to include mentoring costs as part of the development plan. Yes, I can go into that. So there's a 4-month leadership development program, which is part of the fellowship. We've also included this as we find it really useful that fellows have a chance for peer-to-peer learning as well and to meet the other fellows and learn from them. So within that, you will be matched with a leadership coach throughout the duration of that fellowship. And it is likely you'll also participate in the program with some of our Westpac Foundation Social Scale-Up grantees as well. So that one-on-one coaching within that can be very much tailored to your specific needs. So you should be able to have mentoring within that. But if it's more specific mentoring other than leadership, then we can probably discuss that further and explore. Then also the storytelling program is led by storyteller Simon Oates, and he provides a workshop around storytelling with our Social Change Fellows. And then provides one-on-one coaching with them to develop largely their leadership story. So can we provide options in the development program, either the Harvard or Stanford program, instead of specifying one or the other? They do have quite similar programs across both institutions. So as long as you're able to communicate to us what the program is, then yes, you could mention that could be across both because it may be dependent on timings, which one you complete. So if you have a specific question about your situation, best to contact us on Westpac Scholars at westpac.com.au and we'll get in touch with you to discuss further. So there's a question about first instalment and second instalment, particularly if the majority of expenses are in the first half of the year. How is this funded? We'll provide you the funds that you need to make sure all costs are covered within the time frame that you need to book them. So don't worry about that. We'll make sure it's all done and we'll work that through in December once you've been notified. So the initiative is part of an international movement. Is this okay? It is okay if it's becoming an international movement, and just within particular reference to your application, we really want to see the impact it has for Australia and the relevance here as well. Can you fund any childcare? Particularly if you're doing international travel and you might need to have childcare while travelling, yes, we can include that within the development plan and we can discuss that further with you. So there's a question about feedback. Yes, so if you want feedback on a previous application, we can certainly endeavour to provide this before the close of the application. So if you can send an email to westpacscholars@westpac.com.au as soon as possible, and we'll provide feedback on your application previously. So for long distance travel, are we expected to travel economy or can we book premium? Yes, you are expected to travel economy, but if you want to individually cover the distance to travel premium, you're welcome to, but fellowship funds will cover economy travel. So if the development plan is under budget at the end of the fellowship, what happens to the unused funds? We'll discuss that as a case-by-case depending on how you're tracking. There may be an opportunity to spend any minimal funds on our Westpac Changemakers Summit, which happens in November at the end of the year, which brings together social enterprise leaders in 2 days of knowledge sharing and learning, but we've discussed that on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so the question, can you give an example of social change impact as demonstration of impact? I guess this would be specific on a case-by-case basis. I guess we want to see feedback or change or growth or in the target area you're working with. So maybe if you want to get in touch for that particular question, and we can sort of talk through that. But just keep in mind that we do review hundreds of applications, so try and communicate as compelling as possible for your application. But maybe for that one, get in touch offline and we'll provide a bit more context there. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate your interest in the program and wish you all the best with your application. So please send us an email to Westpac Scholars if you have any specific questions over the next week. But we really look forward to looking at your applications. So thank you.